Good evening. Welcome to For the Record. The Methodist Church is the biggest Christian denomination in the country, accounting for over 35% of the country's population and over 65% of the Itoke population. The church has played a strong and influential role in Fiji's religious life, as well as social and political affairs, and is regarded as a key part of the country's social power structure. Joining me tonight on For the Record is the outgoing president of the Methodist Church of Fiji and Rotuma, the Reverend Dr. Tevita Banivanua. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right. You were elected president at the 2014 conference, took on the position in January 2015, and will relinquish it a few months from now in January 2018. How would you describe your tenure as the head of the biggest church in Fiji for the last 3 years?
I will describe it as a time of coming together, as a time of little repairs here and there, and as a time of moving the church onward into the new Fiji that we have in place today.
You mentioned little repairs, but in your address at the conference, you said you did not seek the responsibility as chief shepherd of the flock, but answered the call to serve as the church entered a very difficult time in the church history. So, and you came in to do those repairs, so to speak. What were those difficulties that were in place when you took on the position?
Yes, when I came in, not only as president, but starting from deputy general secretary, there was this difficulty with military government existing then. And that was the time when we were sort of, most of our things were closed down.
Yes.
Conference and including all, the story. And it was from there that we started to build. I was part and parcel of that group. And when the time came for the General Secretary and the then President was sort of, because of court of law, sort of...
Some of your members were in court?
Yeah, in court.
Charged with political crimes?
Yeah, we were all in court.
You were in court as well?
Yes, I was in court. And it was reduced with a noli proski. About 4 only were left, and the 4 were the 2 former presidents and the existing president and the General Secretary then.
There was headlines at the time that the Methodist Church was losing faith in Fiji. I mean, this was probably not your words, it was a headline. And it said that you thought that 2012 was the beginning of a new period, but you've been banned from holding meetings since 2009. 2 of your most senior office holders facing charges of holding illegal meetings, and the emergency regulations that were in place. How did you work through with government from then to where you are?
Yes, we just let government be government, and we encourage them to please call elections, because that will guarantee that the government is responsible to the people. So we were part of the push that enabled the 2014 general election.
To take place.
Yeah, to take place.
Let's leave politics. I'll come to politics later. We'll discuss it in a segment later. I'd like to talk about church issues to start off with. You've said you've been able to turn these difficulties into opportunities and rise as a transformed church. So what are some of the ways that you've transformed the church?
Yes, just allow me to say, there were cracks in our system. There were cracks because people were trying to side here and side there. So what we wanted to do was to...
You mean siding in political...
Yeah, in political affiliation, sort of, right. Leaning towards somebody and all those. So what we tried to do was to try and bring out the church from that siding here or siding there, just to be church, And what we did then was to try and revise our constitution and see the constitution that it was, it was 1984 and 2000 and year 2000 when the constitution or the then constitution was made. But we thought that it was time to have a review to bring it out of the rigidity that was there.
And try to clear the
Yeah,
the sort of the complicated mess involvement in the politics that was in place at that
that's
time.
right. So we started with a revision of our constitution.
And that constitution basically stated no involvement in politics for church leaders.
Well, the constitution before then
Had stated that.
stated that, but people do otherwise.
Right.
So here in this new constitution, we sort of putting our feet down and say no politics is no politics. So we can move forward as a church.
As a church.
So constitution and its regulations, and we initiated our code of conduct and to monitor how we are getting on, and then our connectional plan, the directions of where we are going. Our connectional plans have got these 12 pillars and about 8 KSAs that we have identified to help us in the journey forward. Yeah.
As part of the transformation that
That's
you've
right.
put together.
That's
Let's
right.
talk about some of those pillars. Some of them just, as I see, salvation of the people,
Okay.
the family, education, city mission and social
Yes.
services, preparation of future church leaders, evangelization of the non-Christian segment of society, inter-church and interfaith relationships, and the development of church property. Let's talk about some of these. Let's start with family.
Yeah.
Because much has been said about many of the social issues
Yeah.
in the country as a direct result of the breakdown of the family unit. We've had increasing numbers of broken families, single moms, increasing number of divorces,
Yeah.
people on the streets, suicides, and sexual crimes and rapes committed by family members.
That's right.
Do you think the church shares some burden of responsibility for not addressing or strengthening their effort in these issues?
Yeah, I think if we are to put blame on any part of Fiji, it's all of us.
All of
not,
us.
Not just the church. It's governments and other social.
Could the church have done better?
Yes, we know that we have difficulty in that, and we have initiated moves that would help the family section or sector of our pillar. Last year I went up to Houston, Texas, to sign a memorandum of understanding with the Family Life Ministry of the Campus Crusade, that we would need their
To make
materials,
stronger initiatives on family-oriented programming.
because they are the family life stream of that group. So we need resources, and we don't have any ready-made resources. So we negotiated with them, can we use your resources, translate it and make it applicable to Fiji? So that was the signing of that MOU. And with that signing, I mentioned to them that we will try and get someone appointed at last year's conference to take up the ministry or the Family Life Ministry.
Family Life Ministry. Before we go to the break, the church has received criticism in the past that many parents, fathers, mothers have become too involved with church obligations. I'm sure you've heard this. And that they've neglected their families. They're involved in church activities. That more time is spent on church activities than on family time. Is it criticism fair, or is that overreach?
Well, it's both. It's both. Because functions of the church, are carried out throughout the week. Monday is youth, and Tuesday is choir, and Wednesday is church. The cell groups, and all days are all evenings are taken care of, so yes, we are guilty in that.
Something to be mindful of.
Yeah, but at the same time, we warn our people that you don't have to to make it every day of the week.
Providing a balance, so to speak.
That's right. That's right.
All right, we're out of time for the first segment. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back to For the Record. We're with the outgoing president of the Methodist Church. A good number of religious denominations and offshoots of the Methodist Church have sprung up, mainly led by former lay preachers of the church itself. They include Sulia Sikurlo of the Christian Mission Fellowship, CMF, Atu Volon of the New Methodist Church, New Methodist Christian Fellowship, Epeli Ratambadada of the All Nations Christian Fellowship. They have broken away. They've become very successful. They've attracted relatively good numbers. Some would say they're growing much faster than the Methodist Church. How would you describe what has taken place? Why have members like this leaving the church and become successful with their own churches?
The newest big trend in the church is Pentecostalism, the Pentecostal groups. Their emphasis is more on being filled with the Spirit and all those. So when they move out, because the Methodist Church emphasized that as well, but at the same time stress the social responsibility that goes with being a Christian. So we go and we get slower in attracting people because of that. Because not everybody would like to come and give up their money, their resources to building up the community where we live. So that's probably how they have moved on, and they have detached themselves from the Vanua. They have detached themselves from other social responsibilities.
Some would be a bit more dynamic than you in many ways,
Yeah.
in terms of the way they've used new technology, the way they've used new ideas, and the way they attract young people.
Yeah. I mean, it's the most, it's the newest, and it's the most popular in the Christian move. They came out of the evangelical movement, which the Methodist Church is, and so they continued with the emphasis on the Holy Spirit, which is part and parcel of the whole Christian journey. Yeah.
Is it a move that concerns you, this increasing number of churches that are forming?
Well, I hope that they will realize that Christianity is like a coin. On one side you will see different story, and then the other side is a different story, but it's the same thing. That's
so
what
it's two sides of serving the same God, you would say?
Yeah. So for us, our emphasis is gospel, evangelical, gospeling, and also the social issues, the social side of that. Building homes, looking after the poor, and all those are part and parcel of what we believe that the church should be, just like in Jesus' days.
Okay. So some of these churches would argue that they do similar programs,
Okay.
But let me just ask that you remain the major Christian denomination in the country. This decline in membership, you discussed it a bit at Tevita. What are some of the reasons you found why people are leaving, apart from the Pentecostals? Are people losing faith? And what does the church intend to do about it?
Yeah, one big thing that has happened to Fiji is the outward going of the Fijians. You go to the States and you see many churches there belonging to the Fijians. That's okay. And you go to Australia, and you go to New Zealand, you go to the UK. There are lots of this. So that's one area that we have missed, and we have got groups in Dubai and in the other Pacific Islands that they have been asking us to come and help them in their setup and all this. So that's an area we are trying to get to collect the names and the numbers, so we can really know what is really happening.
Yes. The other one is, of course, the number of people attending church. This is by observation.
Yeah.
We don't think that's happening as much as it used to be.
Yes.
And there's also what people feel. I mean, these new churches that are coming up. One characteristic one can see is the increasing number of young people that they're managing to pull.
Yes.
And one wonders if is the church being too rigid in its structure with the way it interacts between the leadership of the church and the younger generation of the church, that there's not much interaction with young people.
Yeah, thank you for that. We have our youth section, and of course the traditional side,
MYF.
MYF and the Sunday schools and all this. We have that. We've just signed an MOU with the Japanese, the Korean, the International Youth Fellowship, this last conference. So we're trying to help our youth to be aware not only of their spirituality, the spiritual life, but to be more sociable in their own ways, to do that. So and if we go to the other side, what is attracting the youth on the other side, we have introduced, we've just said, explained what the use of music, especially
Right.
the use of music in the church. That came up in this last conference. So it is part and parcel of our struggle, how to meet what the youth needs.
What the new generation, likes.
Yeah.
We'll stop there and move on to the issues of the education that was raised at the church at the conference. You're watching For the Record. We'll be back after the break.
Okay.
Welcome back. You're watching For the Record. Now, during the conference, the church raised the proposal that only teachers, that they would like to see teachers who practice the faith, that they be part of the teaching staff of its 33 Methodist schools. At least that's what came up. 17 primary schools and 16 secondary schools that the church runs. Yes. So this has been interpreted by people as yet another attempt by the church to further racial and religious discrimination. And critics are holding this up as another proof of the Methodist Church divisive policies. What was the basis for that policy coming up?
Yes, we have a special...
Because some would see it as another own goal by the church, into raising this issue again and bringing it upon themselves.
We have a special position that we believe in, that the world will be better with this. So that's why we needed our own people to guide. No, it's just the leaders, the principals, and the head teachers, not the other teachers.
Okay, just the head teachers.
Yeah, just the head teachers and the principals. So those were our argument, because we have our special need to attend to, and that was why we built schools in the first place. So that we can help our young people to realize this is what the Methodist Church stands for, and so we.
So you don't think that someone from another religious group or another faith can provide that?
They can provide, but in another way, it's we have different constitutions, we have different other things. So the emphasis is on the way we believe, which is the right way to move forward.
Obviously, you know that you received a lot of pushback. The Education Ministry, first of all, the Attorney General said it was not constitutional at the moment, and said by the Acting Education Minister. It was against the Constitution. It won't be in the best interest of the students who need qualified teachers to head the schools. According to the government, that's the basic, primary, main thing that should guide the leadership of the school. And secondly, they said teachers, including heads, are civil servants and paid for by the government through salaries financed by every Fijian taxpayer. And also, it also gives students the right to choose not to participate in religious activities. What's your response to those statements from the government?
Yes, we understand where the government is coming, because that's what they are standing for. Our problem is what we are seeing in Fiji. The lots of laws or the children breaking rules and laws in schools, and there must be something wrong in the whole system. That's why we are coming in and offering our help, and the way we are offering it is that the heads of the school should be...
so you feel, in the schools that are led by people from the principals from the Methodist Church faith, are you seeing a difference? Do they have less crime or less issues than schools that are led by principals from other faiths? What is the basis that you've...
the basis is Fiji in general. I think what is happening in the young people's lives today, and the young people's life, and the characters and the way the morality is lost, and that's what we stand for. We believe that we are the moral guardian of a nation.
Yeah. So do you have statistics to show that having a principle from the Methodist faith will make things better?
Well, in the past when they were all Methodist, this sort of difficulties were not there. Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about the minister said not possible. They're paid for by the government. The only way that can dictate you can do this if you privatize the Methodist church schools and pay your own teacher salaries, and like the way the LDS, for instance, operates. Is that something you're looking into?
We want negotiation. We don't want the government to keep telling us what to do, because that's been the issue that we face. Government telling us this is what you do, this is what you should think. We don't believe in that. We believe in discussions. So we were offering so that we can talk. We can talk and discuss the issues with government and the responsible people. Yeah.
So that's the way you like the consultation. And so let's lead on into your relationship with the current government.
Okay.
As you mentioned, you came in at a very hostile. The relationship between the Methodist Church and the government from when it was in the interim government to when you won the elections, sometimes it's downright hostile.
Yeah.
The Methodist Church conference was cancelled between 2009 2011, and the church was accused of playing politics. How would you describe your relationship today?
Today is much better. I mean, we have come out of that, and we have come out because we just don't think of what government is doing seriously like before. Because before, the Methodist Church has a very strong voice and kept telling government what to do and all this. We have tried to come out and be church, and the way we are working this out. As I said, our papers, in my presentation in the few years that I have been there, I first spoke to conference that the first thing that we have to do is to map, our mapping. And then after mapping, we try to fill in, how we do that. And that's what we have been doing.
You say you've come out of it, but just in April this year, the church expressed disappointment with the PM for stating in Parliament that the Methodist Church was the campaign mouthpiece for SODELPA, and that you perpetuate, as been said several times through the last decade, racial discrimination, that you and the opposition were spreading lies. Have you sorted this out with the Prime Minister since then?
Well, the Prime Minister can say what he wants to say. I was asking him in the response to what was heard at Parliament, if he can give us, facts. Where were we being the mouthpiece? We are mouthpiece of not even the first, the Fiji First or the SODELPA. We are mouthpiece of God.
Right. You were responding to a statement by, the time was seen as a statement by the Methodist Church. Of course, you said it was released by a subcommittee that went, but at the time it was a paper sent out by the Methodist Church on the proposed village bylaws, stating that, among other things, reinstatement of the Great Council of Chiefs, declare Fiji a Christian state, remove about 17 decrees and policies that the church felt breached the rights of indigenous peoples, as well as a review of the 2013 constitution. And the statement was released about the same time as a SODELPA MP asking the question in Parliament. So that is where the Prime Minister made the statement, so to speak, of the church's involvement in politics. Was he wrong?
Well, the difficulty was I was not here. It just started, and then I took off to visit other places. I was in Koro when all this was happening.
It came out.
Yeah, came out, and I didn't know about the similarity of what was presented and what the SODELPA was doing. I have no idea. It's the first time for me to hear that.
Right.
But we don't follow anybody. Our what we follow is the Bible.
The Bible.
Yeah, and if they were talking from the Bible,
your critics would find it hard to believe, though, but that that you're totally out of politics at the moment.
Well, I don't think we can be out of politics. Party politics, I'm talking about. Party politics is what we have come out of. we believe in politics of the poor. We need to be looking after our poor. We need to be looking after the
social issues.
The social issues.
I'm just being told time is up for this segment. We will continue this wonderful discussion after the break. Welcome back. You're watching For the Record. So we were discussing that the church cannot be you saying cannot be out of politics. You talked about the politics of the poor, the social issues. I mean, the current Prime Minister has accused the church several times, of this racism, racial hatred, inciting racial hatred. And they also is always citing back to your involvement in the 1987 and 2000 coups. In fact, it's alleged that one of the coups was actually planned at Epworth House. How would you describe?
I don't know about that one.
It's an allegation. It's camera, but so it stands now in politics then, as you were describing earlier, and it stands in politics now. What's the difference?
Yes, as I said, we have mapped. We started with this through mapping. Yeah? We were being informed by the political issues of those days. But then we realized that we are a church. We should be church. And we tried.
That should be your focus.
Yeah, that's our focus. A church that represents the God that we believe. So, and therefore politics.
So it's not the same as it was in 1987. It's totally different church now.
Hopefully it is different. Because we have been trying through constitution, through all these other things that I have mentioned, our connectional plan, that we have tried to come out.
Yes.
So it's 3 days. It's 3 years now. So it's early days.
Early days.
Yeah.
And all that. You were, as you said, in Coro when that statement was released by the subcommittee, and then you released a statement saying they did not represent the views of the church as it stays today, that they breached the procedures, went beyond their terms of reference. Is that correct? Is that correct? That you released this statement?
That was the group that stayed behind in Suva.
And worked on it,
not
so me. It wasn't you, but doesn't it show that there are strong elements within the church that continue to hold these views?
It may
Even
have been.
though you were not there.
It may have been. It may have been. But in my time, I've been trying to emphasize that issues such as this should not be issues that should divide
the country.
I believe in discussions. I believe in dialogue. I believe in all this. We need to talk about issues rather than using parliament for some of our messages. Even the Prime Minister,
Would you have preferred if the Prime Minister had called you
and talk to us?
To clarify the statement. But members of different political parties are in the church, are members of the church.
Yes.
Fiji First, NFP, Labour. But most would say probably that SODELPA supporters are within the church. You would argue? You would think so?
Yes, SODELPA members. They are all there.
They're all there.
Yeah, they are Christians, and they hold their faith.
All right. Now we will go to the issue of another issue that was raised at the recent conference of the Indo-Fiji community, that they should be continue to be called the Indian division of the church. So this is while most of Fiji, almost everyone in Fiji, is now changing the names, schools for instance, to be more inclusive of all Fiji citizens. That the church, even though you said have tried to change, still continuing to organize yourself based on race and race-based names. Why is it still being called the Indian division?
Well, talking about this last conference, the motion came from BA that we maintain the Indian division, and the Indian division, the superintendent seconded the motion. So that's where we are at the moment.
Okay.
It was the Indian division that seconded the motion.
But they were the ones that introduced the motion last year.
They introduced the motion of using another name, and because we did not know, we did not understand that other name, we thought we should take it back for discussions in our various annual meetings, and then be brought back.
So it's in progress. The discussion is ongoing on
Yeah,
this.
right up to now, that was the position. The Bar division, proposed it, and the Indian division supported it.
So what was the motion based on keeping the name?
Yeah, it's just keeping the name because I don't go to the church matters now. I personally believe that for someone who is of Indian, they have their culture, they have everything that they will try to keep. Just to take that name out, for me, it's not good because we are looking down at him or her, in that position.
Right. So if they do want to change it, it will be changed?
Yeah, if they want to change it, then they...
Because one of the responses I see from the church is that it's not race-based but culture-based, as you've just mentioned.
That's right, yeah.
And reflects the historical aspect of church's work. So, as I would say, you'd rather keep history rather than create history by bringing the church under all an inclusive umbrella, under one umbrella that does not recognize race-based but recognize them all as children of God, some would argue.
Yeah, they are part of history that we need to keep for reference for the future people. They are part of history as well that we need to challenge.
Need to create, yeah.
Yeah, because we challenge them because they don't adhere to the current situation that we are trying to promote, that everybody is equal before God.
Okay. You're watching For the Record. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back. You're watching For the Record. Now, Reverend Dr. Tevita Banivanua. Many issues to discuss. We just keep running out of time on all of them. But great. Now, I wanted to discuss one of your statements in your your message to the church at Moscovite. You addressed the issue of the secularization of Fijian society, which you said is reshaping the culture and the way we engage with each other. You talked about Lakoya Niveau, calling for members to remain true to the prophetic tradition of the church, even if it means to being willing to make those around you and yourselves feel uncomfortable. And you said the stories of the Christian tradition are the stories of our culture, and the struggle over that interpretation is crucial to political and social life. The church is still the place where most Fijians come to think about the basic questions of life, including social and political life. What were you trying to say here?
I was just trying to say that the time that we are in is a time of real challenge, and we as a church, we have been trying our very best to be in tune with not only Fiji but the world, and that's what you've just read, and we.
You mentioned a lot about the church and culture, and the church has made strong traditions on indigenous rights in the past. How do you see the two in place?
Yeah, we believe that culture is a living thing. It changes. It changes. There was part of culture that we were brought up with, and come time, the time comes when we see the differences, so we move. Just like
So you see the church strongly intertwined with Fijian culture?
Yeah, the Fijian, the Itoke.
Fijian Itoke traditional structure.
Yeah, it's strongly intertwined with that because that was how we came in. Our missionaries came in and into the chiefly places, and that's where the blessings of the chiefs came to the church. And we gave the blessings from the church to the chiefs. So it was that exchange that we tried to keep. And
do you think that was part of the complications with the politics that arose in the past, this intertwining with the traditional structure?
Not really. As I said, the culture is a living thing. It has to change. Maybe some of us were not trying to promote the change that was needed then. Right now, what we are trying to do in our Lakoya Niveau is to try and rethink and make the new map and move the church forward.
Church forward.
In-
I'll just go quickly on to the church's financial status. You're looking very financially healthy at the moment, some would say. 7.14 million cash flow projected over the next 18 months, if what I've read is correct. And you've formed the Lakoyani Management Pte Limited with Serena Ngoro as the MD, and the church is setting up a committee to look in the fundraising drives and also building itself up to be self-funded in order to fulfill God's work. So please explain the efforts about...
Yes, when we were trying to do our papers, the theological, the social, and all these papers were, are now in place. Well, work is still going on regulations and other little bits. At the same time, we want to see the Methodist Church in Fiji to be serious with its funding as well. So, because we have lots of land, and we have not used those lands to help us in the mission that we are going to undertake. Our mission, as I have said, is a social mission.
Yes.
And we are trying to help, places like Dilkusam, Babilomani, and all this.
Ones, eh? Would this lessen the financial obligations of your members?
When I invited
because this is what criticism that's been made in the past. Eh?
Yeah, when we invited the people to come and talk with us on this new move, we've had our trust, holding trust, Methodist Church holding trust, some years back in 2004. We've had that, but the holding trust was not functioning as we thought that. So we called some people, help us. We have got the land. We've got all this. Can you give us some direction? So they came up with the idea of setting up a company.
Okay. So in short, will it lessen the financial obligations on members, or what?
Yeah, I was going to do that.
We're running out of time.
Okay,
to round up. So yes,
because yes,
yes
our church will be much better, served with these funds available.
Thank you, Reverend Dr. Banivanua. Final question. We've run out of time.
Okay.
Your last few months as president of the church, what are your priorities and your key messages to the members of the church and the leadership of the church that will come up after you?
Yes.
In 30 seconds.
I stated my, my priority at the beginning, to be a church that is at ease with itself, with all the papers, with all the finance, with everything, and especially their relationship with God should be better. So that's the church that I have left. I think the church realizes that, and that is the message that I would want to leave with those that are coming. A church that is at ease with itself.
And the journey continues. Reverend Dr. Navandra Banivanua, thank you for joining me on the show. That was the show for the evening. From me and the team, good night.